In this lesson, we'll learn how to control and customize an object's stroke using the Stroke panel. Alright, now in the previous lesson, we learned about Illustrator's Appearance panel. Now one of the sub-panels you saw within that panel was the Stroke panel. Now, in this lesson, I want to dive into that panel a little deeper and talk about how we can control and customize a stroke for an object. Now in order to do that, we're going to need our stroke panel open, so I actually have that over here in my panel dock. It looks like several stroked lines. If you don't have that open, again, you can come up here to the window drop-down menu and choose the stroke option here to find that panel. So I'm going to go ahead and undock that. I'm going to drag it out here so we have quick and easy access to it all the time, and I'm just going to pull it up in here into the corner here. And let's just zoom in on some of these basic objects that I've got on my screen. Now, I want to come in here and just select this first one here. And this first option here is for stroke weight. We can either manually input a number here, we can drop this down and choose one of the defaults, or we can use the arrow keys to increase it 1 point at a time. Now, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here nice and close so we can look at this next option. You can see here we have a row for cap. Now, this has to do with the cap that's applied to the ends of our stroke. And you can see here that the first option is currently selected. Now, this first option is going to extend the stroke on our path all the way up to the anchor point. So our anchor point is right here at the end of that path, and the stroke ends at that anchor point. So our second option is actually going to let us apply a round cap to a path. And there you can see the stroke rounds around the path. So this third option here actually is going to extend the stroke beyond the anchor point. Now, the way this works is if we have a 5-point stroke applied to this path, it's actually going to continue that same stroke width all the way around the anchor point so that there's one uniform width all the way around that path. So the next row of options here is for corners, and we actually need to come find an object with a corner on it. Let's go ahead and grab this square here. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and select our square, and let's go ahead and beef up that stroke weight some. And let's go ahead and look at these corner options. You can see that the first corner option is currently selected for this shape, and this is a miter corner. This is a pointed corner, as you can see. Now, this second option is to apply a rounded corner to our stroke, and you can see here the effect of that rounded corner. Now, this third option is for a beveled corner, and I don't actually use this option much, but if you're creating artwork where you need a beveled corner, there's a stroke option that will enable you to turn that on. Now, you may have noticed that this limit field is actually not available for the beveled corner, and in fact it's only going to be available for your miter corners. This entry right here has to do with when a mitered corner is actually going to automatically switch over to a beveled corner. So let's go ahead and just jump down here and take a look at this next row. We have some alignment options for our strokes as well. Now notice our stroke sits right on the middle of our path for this shape. It straddles it right down the middle. Now, our first option is selected here, and that is what's enabling that. The second option here is going to align the stroke to the inside of our path. So you can see here how the stroke jumps, and it's now on the inside of the path. And the third option is actually going to push it out to the outside of our path. So we can actually choose where the stroke is going to align to in relation to the path. Let me go ahead and align that stroke right back to the center of our path so I can show you this next option here. This next option is going to allow us to create a dashed line for our stroke on top of our path. So we can turn that on just by clicking this little box right here. And you can see here that right now I have an 8-point dash length applied to this dashed line. So we can actually specify exactly how long our dashes are going to be, and we can actually also specify how large the gaps are going to be as well. Maybe we just want a 4-point gap between our 8-point dash. So let's just apply that here, and you can see here that we can decrease the size of the gap between our dashes. Now there's also a couple options over here, and you can see that the second one is currently selected. Now what this option is doing is actually aligning our dashes to the corners, so we get one dash that sits right on the middle of each corner. Now it's actually having to adjust the dashes just a little bit in order to align those perfectly. If we don't care about that, we can actually select this first option here, and you can see how the dash line operates around the corners, and it doesn't look real nice and neat. So you can see that a lot of times you may want to just go ahead and click that second option right there. Now, one other thing you should know about a dash line is that a dash line is also going to work with our caps up here. Let's say, for example, we wanted rounded caps on our dashes, or maybe we even wanted to create a dotted line as our stroke. We could do that with this rounded cap here. Let's go ahead and apply that, and you can see here how the dashes each respect that. Now, let's come in here and actually change our dash width to 0 points and see what happens. You can see here now we have perfect circles for our dashes, and we can actually increase the gap here. Let's go ahead and jump that up to about 15. Now that might be a little bit too high. Let's go ahead and say 10. And you can see here how we've created a dotted line around our object instead of a dashed line. So really that's an easy way to create that sort of effect. Now moving on down here, we have some arrowhead options, and I want to go ahead and move up here to just our open paths so we can take a look at those. Let me go ahead and just select this path right here, and let's go ahead and drop each one of these boxes down, and you're going to see here we have some arrowhead options. Let's go ahead and choose which type of arrowhead we'd like to appear on this left side of our path. So I want to go ahead and let's go ahead and choose this one right here. And you can see that that's applied right there to where we began the path. Let's go ahead and choose this option over here and specify sort of the arrowhead. Maybe we want to go ahead and grab this one right here. Let me deselect that path so we can take a look. I think that looks pretty good. So we have a couple of other options here for scale in regards to either end of our path. As far as the arrowhead we have selected here or the one we have selected here, we can actually change the scale of those. Let me go ahead and just grab this slider, and you can see here how we can bump that scale up for these arrowheads independently of one another. Or let me just undo that. We can actually link that together so that when we adjust the scale on one of our arrowheads, it's actually going to adjust both arrowheads. So we can link those together there. We can also change the direction of our arrowheads by clicking this link right here, and we can just reverse those just like that. Now we have a couple alignment options here for arrowheads as well. Now I don't know if you can tell, but this one on the right is selected, and that's going to end the arrowhead at the anchor point for our path. So you can see that right now our arrowheads are ending at the anchor point. Look, this first option here is going to extend those arrowheads out and have them beginning at the anchor point. So we can choose how they align in relation to the path we're assigning them to. Now we've got one other area of options down here at the bottom of our stroke panel, but we're going to talk about those in the next lesson. Now I want to go ahead and just show you how maybe we can apply a dash line to this circle shape here. Now remember, we can access this entire panel right from our appearance panel. So let me just go ahead and grab my appearance panel here. And you know, maybe for this object I want to create sort of a gear shape. Maybe we want to come in here and add a dash line to this object. Let's go ahead and give it let's give it about a 10-point dash here, and let's increase that stroke width. Now one thing you should take note of here is that in applying a dashed line, we can only align that stroke to the center of a path. So we're going to leave that aligned to the center of this path here, and I want to come in here and add another stroke to this path. Maybe we want to go ahead and add a second stroke. Now this is actually copying the first stroke because I had it selected here, so I'm going to turn off the dash line, and let's align this one to the center and really beef that one up by adding some extra weight to it. Alright, so creating sort of a gear shape is really pretty simple when you apply two different strokes to that path using the appearance panel. Now there's one other element about a stroke that I want to go ahead and show you here before we end this lesson, and let me just go ahead and select this arrowhead stroke. Now we can actually expand this stroke into a filled shape, and we learned how to do that by coming up to Object and expanding the appearance. But when you're dealing with a path like this, you can also come to Object and choose Path, and then choose Outline Stroke. And if we zoom in here on this stroke, you can see now that we've got several filled shapes instead of a stroked path. So when you're dealing with a path, there's another way you can do that. Whichever way you feel more comfortable with, feel free to do it that way. So in this lesson, we've learned how we can customize a stroke using the stroke panel in Illustrator. In the next lesson, we're going to learn about an exciting new tool in Illustrator CS5 called the Stroke Width tool.